Plenty of audience questions, more comments from the speakers. Who would like to ask the first question? Mr. Thompson.
Very kind of a two-part question. This handout says open letter condemning Grandy appearance. Now it's not condemning what he says, and I don't know Mr. Grandy, I don't know in detail what he says. To Mr. Buttar, I'm a little familiar with what's been happening with Michael Oren when I've met peers, and I saw the article in the paper this morning about the 11 people condemned. So my question to you is, if people exercise their so-called free speech to the degree of preventing Mr. Oren from speaking, that's not my definition of free speech. I think he has a right to be heard. And if these people are convicted because they persistently, and I've read quite a few things about this, kept him from speaking, that's not an innocent exercise of free speech to me, if you get a comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Insightful question. So you're asking about the heckler's veto, I think is how prosecutors characterize the case. And it's interesting, there was a contrasting set of facts, and I don't know the name of the school at which this happened, but as I understand it, students saved their questions until after, and I believe it was Mr. Oren's presentation, and then there was never an opportunity to pose the question because he left. And so if on the one hand you can respect the rules of the establishment and not be heard, which is to say a very obvious speech differential, and on the other hand you can, and I think the full amount of time that these students spoke for during the event amounted to something on the order of 5 minutes out of an hour-and-a-half long presentation where this man was speaking. I think it's a little bit absurd to claim that they actually prevented him from speaking. I mean, I think you have to stretch the facts.
Also has
yeah, I'll defer to Jamie, but let me just finish the point. The FBI is currently investigating dozens of labor organizers, peace activists, and immigrant rights activists all around the country for nonviolent political speech. You know, these are thought crimes, and there is no way around the simple fact that when you erode the right to dissent for some people, whoever the some people are, it creates a hole through which you could drive any kind of marginalization agenda. And I see you shaking your head, and I suspect you're, well, I'll be a great many things I would say. Do you want to take?
But yeah, I want to address both of your points, and I partially agree with both of your points. First of all, I refuse to sign any letter condemning the appearance of Fred Grandy. I think he made some major contributions to American political culture with his work in Love Boat, and he's in danger of erasing all of those contributions with his fulminations against the Muslim community now. But I always think that the right answer to speech, including hate speech, is people getting together and engaging in the kind of dialogue that we're doing today. And so, I applaud the organizers for putting this together. I encourage them to do this. I said, don't marginalize yourselves by going out and picketing him and making him the issue. We've got a robust, beautiful, multicultural, tolerant, diverse community in Montgomery County. We're going to defend it against any hate speech that comes along, including Fred Grandy. So I don't need to condemn his appearance. He has a right to go wherever he wants. I also would not attach my name to something saying it's inappropriate for the Republican Party to invite him. I think it's perfectly appropriate for the Republican Party to invite him because that's what they stand for. Because they are, if you look at like the people who are trying to dismantle the DREAM Act in Maryland and attack and demonize immigrants, that's where it's coming from. So I'm not going to pretend that it's not to their political advantage to do so, but it's in our political advantage to stand up for First Amendment values and for tolerance and diversity. Now, you raised the other question about the hecklers, and I don't know the exact facts of what happened, but let me try to make a couple of distinctions here. First of all, I don't have a lot of time to do First Amendment litigation anymore, but I took the time to defend Cindy Sheehan, who was arrested at a Bush State of the Union address because she had a t-shirt on that had the number of war dead in Iraq. She didn't raise her hand, she didn't say a word, she was arrested because of a t-shirt she had, and we've got very strong case law, even in high schools, and I know we've got high school students here at the Tinker versus Des Moines School District, that gives people in the United States of America the right to wear the t-shirt that they want. And so we won that case. We got a $5,000 judgment for Cindy Sheehan because of that. Now, a heckler. It's interesting. I was rereading the Lincoln Douglas debates the other day, and if you look at the transcripts, they're hecklers who yell things out in the middle, and Lincoln and Douglas respond to them. There is a great and basically lost art of democratic heckling, where people from the audience are allowed to participate in the discussion, but they stop for an answer. And I support that kind of heckling. On the other hand, there's a kind of heckling I engaged in when I was in college, when the South African ambassador under apartheid came to Harvard, and we decided, you know what, we're going to shut it down. And we're going to expose ourselves to the consequences. And it was an act of civil disobedience. And we exposed ourselves to the consequences, and we were punished for having done so. And I'm proud that I engaged in civil disobedience, and I was arrested several times in the movement against apartheid in the 1980s, and I'm proud of that. And that's one of the important things I've done in my life politically. Now, I don't know exactly what happened there, but it sounds like both sides are agreeing they made it impossible for him to speak. In that case, they've got to face whatever the consequences are at their school. And they should face the consequences for doing it, and they should be proud to if they believe that they are forwarding a political program there. But I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think somebody could come in this room with a loudspeaker and make it impossible for us to speak, and then when we have them removed, and they say, you know, I prevented these liberals for standing up for toleration, I think at that point they have trespassed or they have engaged in disorderly conduct, and they should face the consequences for it, and they should be proud of it. So if those people actually shut down that meeting, then I think they face the consequences for having done so, and they did so knowingly. Now, I think they should be treated no differently from anybody else, and I don't think that should be a jailable offense in the United States of America. And I filed a brief, actually, in a case called Now versus Shahid, where there were anti-abortion protesters whose politics I abhor, but they were sitting in front of an abortion clinic. And there was a RICO suit brought against them that would have bankrupted their organization, and if the logic of it were followed through, they could have been sent to jail for 20 years for extorting the value of the abortion clinic. And that obviously would destroy the labor movement. Every time there's a picket, you could say you've extorted the value of the business. And the Supreme Court decided the way that I was very happy they did, an 8-1 decision saying, no, if you sit in, you subject yourself to removal for disorderly conduct, for trespass, but that's not a RICO violation, that's not extortion, and that's a very important distinction too. So I think we've got to be careful in disentangling these different pieces here. But if you go in and try to shut somebody else's meeting down, I think you do face whatever the consequences that are that you're aware of when you go in.
But they had 3 years suspended sentence in their record for the rest of their life. It never happened before.
Well, again, it's a different question. If it's a disproportionate deployment of a penalty, like say that on that campus other people had done the same thing and had never been punished for it, then that would be an outrageous selective kind of prosecution and an outrageous selective kind of punishment. But civil disobedience is civil disobedience, and people who participate in it should do it knowingly, they should do it consciously, and they should think it through before they do it.
Maybe just one last point, and I support most of that. I think that the facts on the ground do indicate some of that disproportionality as well as the selectivity, which are independently offensive. There's another problem here that relates to both. Associational crimes should always concern us because they are, we have a First Amendment that includes the right to association. The Muslim Student Association of the university was basically suspended for a year. So there's an associational penalty to a group, that was, for all, might have had some relationship to the individuals who were consequences.
Did the group sponsor it, or
no?
Well, then the group should not have. They absolutely should not have been.
I think there are a great many reasons about this case to be concerned.
That sounds like a form of group punishment, which is totally anathema to our system of laws. You punish individuals for things that they seek to do, or groups for things they seek to do, but you don't say that group shares a philosophy with these individuals, and therefore we're going to decertify them.
Unless you're Muslim today or Japanese before.